I always thought you were a good daughter-in-law. I don't want to see your face here anymore. Leave this house, my mother-in-law spat out. Yes, just like a parasite. Get lost, added my sister-in-law with disdain. Despite my devoted care for my mother-in-law after my husband's passing, harsh words continued to be hurled my way. The insults, even directed at my late husband who had lovingly tended to his mother until his final moments, became unbearable. Very well, I'll go, just as you wish, I replied quietly. They celebrated their perceived victory, but a few months later, my mother-in-law returned in tears. Their fortunes had taken a turn for the worse, far worse than I had ever imagined. My name is Stella, aged 32, and I work as a buyer for luxury brands. I first met my husband Bill through a mutual friend. Bill's kind and gentle nature made him my ideal partner, and I was overjoyed when he proposed. As the eldest son, Bill's parents were self-sufficient, which allowed us to maintain a healthy distance. I never had any issues with my in-laws even after we got married. The dynamic between my reliable father-in-law and easygoing mother-in-law felt perfectly balanced, at least from my perspective. From Bill's perspective, his mother's relaxed attitude towards money raised concerns about her future once she would be alone. However, as long as his father remained healthy, it wasn't a pressing issue. In addition to us, Bill had an older sister, Claire, who was divorced and living independently. I assumed she would take responsibility for our parents-in-law given her single status. But Bill didn't seem to have much faith in Claire. I'm a bit apprehensive about entrusting financial matters to Claire, he confided. Why so? Well, Claire has had her fair share of challenges in the past. Looking back, Bill's reservations proved valid. Yet, at the time, I didn't give much thought to Claire's history. Our tranquil married life continued for a few years until my father-in-law's chronic illness took a turn for the worse and he passed away. My mother-in-law, who had relied heavily on him, was devastated. Stay strong, mother-in-law, I comforted her, but how can I manage on my own when he always took care of everything around the house? Just as Bill had feared, I too worried about how my mother-in-law would cope alone. If I felt that way, I could only imagine Bill's concerns. One evening, Bill approached me. Stella, could we move in together with my mom? The proposal was sudden, but not entirely unexpected. What concerned me was Claire. Wouldn't it be better if Claire moved in with her? I suggested. I want to take care of my mom in place of Dad. Mom's particularly clueless about money, so I plan to manage her bank account too. So you can't delegate that to Claire? I asked. That's not an option, Bill said, unusually firm. It's the money Dad left for her. I'll manage it properly so Mom doesn't have to struggle. Though he seemed guilty about asking me to live together, Bill was unwavering when it came to managing his father's inheritance and bank account for his mother. All right, living with your mother sounds fine. Besides, I worry about leaving her alone, given how she is. Thank you, Stella. And so, we moved into my mother-in-law's house. My mother-in-law had always relied entirely on her husband for everything from managing the bank account and paying utility bills to handling credit card payments. She knew nothing about these responsibilities. Bill managed her finances separately from ours and started giving her a monthly allowance for living expenses. Part of his duties included cautioning her whenever she was about to fall for a suspicious door-to-door sales pitch or being pressured by acquaintances to buy expensive cosmetics. Without his interventions, his carefree mother would readily hand over money at the slightest encouragement. She shared the household chores with me, understanding that I was a working woman. Our life together was progressing smoothly. However, our tranquil life came to an abrupt end when Bill collapsed at his workplace. He had been overworking during a particularly busy period at his job and shared the same chronic illness that had afflicted his father. As a result, he was hospitalized. His mother and I visited the hospital daily, but there was no sign of improvement in Bill's condition. Stella, I have a favor to ask of you for after I'm gone. Don't talk like that. You'll recover and be discharged, and we'll all live together again. I knew this day might come, having inherited the same disease as my father, he said, resigned. I want you to listen to my request. It's about my mother. With tears streaming down my face, I listened to my husband's final wish. Bill passed away a few weeks later. Keeping busy with notifying everyone who knew him and arranging his funeral helped me distract myself from the grief of losing my husband. It wasn't until everything had settled down that I remembered what Bill had asked me to do. There was no time for mourning. Now, it was my turn to take care of his mother and fill Bill's role. Mother-in-law, I'm sorry for the chaos until now. From now on, I'll handle the finances and pay the bills. I'll provide you with your living expenses just like before. Stella, even without Bill, are you going to stay with me? She asked. Of course, Bill asked me to take good care of you, so please let me stay and help. Bill said that, huh? My mother-in-law replied, her eyes filling with tears. If you need further adjustments or have more text to correct, feel free to let me know. I feel bad for burdening you with the finances when you're also busy. No, keeping busy actually helps me cope. However, Claire, my sister-in-law, was not happy about me continuing to live there. When she discovered I was managing the finances, she stormed into our home. Why is Stella, who's essentially a stranger now that Bill's gone, still living here? And isn't it strange that she's managing the finances? Before he passed away, Bill asked me to take care of Mother and handle the finances. You're just saying that because it suits you, aren't you? No, it was Bill's wish. What, just because you mentioned Bill's name? Despite her dissatisfaction, Claire backed down for the time being, only to return to her house in a frenzy the following week. Stella, I saw you. You're having an affair. I saw you entering a man's designer shop and dining at a high-end restaurant with a man. Stella, you're spending our money on your lover, aren't you? That's not true. I'm not doing anything like that. No more excuses. How heartless can you be, moving on to the next man so soon after Bill's passing? You agree with me, don't you, Mom? Mother-in-law, completely believing Claire's words, began to view me with suspicion. Stella, so that's what it was. No, that's not it. I'm here because of Bill's wishes. As I tried to explain, Claire interrupted. Don't use Bill as an excuse while having an affair. You're the worst. Silence. I was met with cold stares from both my mother-in-law and Claire. My mother-in-law said harshly, I really misjudged you. I thought you were a good daughter-in-law, until now. I don't want to see your face anymore. Get out of this house. Claire added triumphantly, that's right, get out of here, you parasite. If I give up now, I would be disregarding Bill's wishes, I thought, enduring their words. My mother-in-law and sister-in-law seemed to take pleasure in their relentless onslaught as I stood there, determined to honor Bill's last request. Why on earth did Bill even choose someone like you, Stella? He's always been a bit too trusting, hasn't he? Well, we can't really say, can we? For all we know, Bill might have just been saying he's managing Mom's money while really using it for his own needs. Despite their cruel words against Bill, who cared for his mother until his dying breath, I'd had enough. I might be able to bear insults against me, but I can't stand you speaking ill of my late husband Bill. I'm so sorry I couldn't keep my promise. I apologized to Bill in my heart, then turned to my mother-in-law and sister-in-law. Fine, I'll leave as you wish. As I said this, their faces lit up with joy. Finally realize you're the outsider, huh? And don't forget to leave the checkbook behind, of course. But 3 months after cutting ties with them, my mother-in-law called me. Stella, I got a notice that my card payment didn't go through. What does that mean? Despite her incompetence in handling money, my mother-in-law ignored this and continued to berate me. We've never had this problem before. Ever since you left, the money has suddenly disappeared. So it didn't, you. What? This isn't something we can solve over the phone. Come over here now, she said abruptly, then hung up. If you need further adjustments or have more text to correct, feel free to let me know. I had no choice but to go to her place. When I arrived, my mother-in-law and sister-in-law were waiting for me. Ignoring my mother-in-law's anger, I logged into the online banking system and showed her the account balance. Here's the statement. As you can see, the balance never went into the negative while I was managing it. Can you guess why? What? Isn't that because you were saving money? You're not exactly known for being good with finances, are you? The balance stayed positive because I was depositing $1,500 each month for living expenses. Living expenses? You've been depositing money for that? Ever since Bill was alive, we always handled it that way. We agreed that paying a bit more than our share of the rent while living together would help preserve my mother-in-law's savings. Bill was. Even after Bill passed away, I honored his wish and continued to contribute the same amount from my salary. Of course, after being kicked out of the house, I stopped paying. Then, I showed her the statement after I left. And here's the statement after I left. Over $1,500 have disappeared. It seems someone has been living quite lavishly. I haven't changed my lifestyle at all. Then maybe Claire has been using it, I speculated, glancing at my sister-in-law and scrutinizing the statement details. According to these transactions, the money was spent at upscale boutiques and fancy restaurants. These don't seem like your usual expenses, Claire. Do you know anything about this? I honestly have no idea. I don't think anyone else could have used it. Is there someone else involved? I questioned. What? Claire responded defensively. You might have secretly made a family card or something. After all, the places where money has been used are the same high-end shop and restaurant where I saw you. Even after leaving the house, you're still coveting Mom's money. You're so greedy. Enough. I was at that shop for work reasons. Miata restaurant was for a business meeting and discussion with the shop owner. For work? You could have said that earlier, you know, I said, while checking the statement. I called the owner of the shop. Yes, it was last Friday. The product's name is. As I spoke firmly, Claire stared at me in astonishment. Yes, please attach it to an email. That would be helpful. Oh, I see. Thank you for the information. After hanging up the phone and checking the email, I showed my mother-in-law and sister-in-law the video attached to the email I received. The footage clearly showed my sister-in-law, Claire, purchasing designer goods. What? What is this? Claire's face turned pale as she stared at the screen in disbelief. I contacted the store owner and had him send me a snapshot from the security camera footage of the day of the transaction. There's no doubt it's you, Claire. Do you have anything to say for yourself? Claire remained silent, unable to defend herself. Oh, and by the way, the owner informed me that shortly after the purchases, identical items appeared at nearby pawn shops. The dates coincide with your car transactions, don't they? Well, Claire's flustered demeanor spoke volumes about the truth of the situation. My mother-in-law asked curiously, why would anyone buy something only to immediately sell it? Such a hassle. In Claire's silence, I answered, she needed cash, didn't she? If she withdrew the money directly, it would point directly to her. So she tried to frame me by choosing a store I frequent. Claire remained silent, unable to refute, though my mother-in-law still harbored doubts. But why did she need so much money? It was to repay debts, I added, repeating Claire's whispered admission. It seems Claire hid this from you, but wasn't her divorce due to her debts? Even before they married, Bill often worried about Claire borrowing money from him. He lamented her unchanged spendthrift habits even after their marriage. Debts, you say? At that moment, my mother-in-law seemed to realize something. My late husband's inheritance. Claire was entrusted with the passbook for the account holding the inheritance, wasn't she? Don't tell me. My mother-in-law's question prompted me to check the balance of the account holding my father-in-law's inheritance. The balance is zero. Zero? All of it was withdrawn a few days after I left. No way, my mother-in-law began to falter while Claire cried out in defense. I had no choice. The deadline for my debt repayment was looming. I thought if it was me, his daughter, using it, my father would forgive me. That money was left to me by my husband, Claire. You received your share of the inheritance, didn't you? Yet you spend even your mother's money. You're the real parasite. I'm cutting ties with you. Oh wait, we agreed that I stay here till Stella's gone, remember? If I live with a daughter like you who can't control her spending, I'll end up broke too. First of all, you need to repay all the money you took from me. With that, my mother-in-law practically threw Claire out. However, whether this was the right choice, we do not know. After Claire was evicted, she became difficult to reach, and she never recovered any of her spent inheritance from her husband. My mother-in-law, who could have lived comfortably in her later years, now leads a frugal life alone. Claire managed to repay her debts but struggled to break free from her spending habits, quickly accumulating new debts. She's now dodging debt collectors, constantly moving from place to place. Since leaving my husband's family home to live on my own, I've finally begun to accept Bill's death. The outcome was far from what Bill intended, but I have no regrets. In his last will, Bill told me, what matters most to me is Stella's happiness. By distancing myself from my disrespectful in-laws who disregarded Bill's wishes, I've preserved his memory. I'm confident Bill would understand and support my choice. Moving forward, I intend to cherish the joyful memories I shared with Bill and live at a gentler pace.